Hello, Fiedelbogen here. To my fellow workers in the vineyard, worldwide, greetings. Today's talk is part 2 of a talk titled, Is Feminism a Good Thing? Very well. When hard-pressed, many a standard feminist will fall back upon the dictionary definition of feminism. Feminism. Belief in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. As you will have noted, there is a glaring cognitive disconnection between the term and the definition which follows. Hint, the part about equality. But that aside, the definition itself is not particularly enlightening. Admittedly, it sounds like a good thing, but otherwise it sounds woolly, open-ended, evasive. It is a writhing octopus of multivalencies, and so full of holes that you could drive a fleet of trucks through and steal the furniture along the way. But here, let's try a second definition, albeit one that you won't find in any dictionary. Feminism. Anything that strengthens women at the expense of men. There is, on the surface of the case, no special reason to favor the first definition over the second, and the second, unlike the first, is tight as a drum, with a somewhat operational, even algorithmic character that might be expected to generate a more convergent body of solutions. If you are a feminist, you might not like the second definition, because it sounds shameful, but mere subjective distaste would not be adequate to rule out the veracity or utility of it. But the first definition more usefully captures the spirit of understanding common to feminist-inclined people, male and female alike. When you probe such people as to the meaning of feminism, you will find that feminism is little more than a golden word with a halo of emotions and talking points clustered around it. Yet, despite their manifest want of cogent knowledge, these people are unanimous upon the fixed idea that feminism is a good thing. Now turn your gaze from the common roads of life to the recondite world of feminist academia. What do you find? The identical fixed idea that feminism is a good thing. But with this difference, that the fixed idea is elaborately camouflaged beneath the gloss of educated terminology. Yet more concerningly, and quite unlike the discourses of common life, you will find in feminist academia both a keen understanding of what the second definition implies and a stubborn determination to suppress the damaging consequences for feminism which arise from such implications. The academic feminists know perfectly well what is going on, and they work to spackle this over by a game of theory-building that never ends. Plainly stated, the job of feminist academia is to bamboozle us with smokescreens and give us the runaround ad infinitum so that the truth will not emerge. Among both commoners and academics, the fixed practice is to disallow any critique of feminism on the ground that such criticism attacks a good thing. The academics, however, take it a step further when they aggressively devise sophisticated intellectual strategies to counteract and eventually correct the non-feminist elements who voice such criticisms. But in either case, the feminists operate from a standpoint of feminist triumphalism, which means the dogmatic conviction that feminism has achieved an objective moral triumph absolved from all further discussion. One more time. Feminist triumphalism means the dogmatic conviction that feminism has achieved an objective moral triumph absolved from all further discussion. Yes, such is their fixed idea. Such is the pivot point on which their world turns. Here again we contemplate the battle for feminism's soul. This is high drama. The adherents of feminism believe that they have triumphed, that the world rightfully belongs to them, that they may rightfully extend feminist custodialism and feminist tutelage into every possible corner of life by means of perpetual revolution, until nothing in the world lives independently of feminism, at which point feminism, at least in theory, will become the world. Yet the grubby truth is that feminism is only a balloon waiting to die of overinflation. And in the aftermath of that messy explosion, the timeless world that we have always known, albeit in a damaged condition, will go right on as we have always known it. Brief indeed shall be feminism's eternity. The battle for feminism's soul means the power to speak the final word, or the controlling word, on what feminism objectively is, or isn't. Consider, if somebody had the power to describe and evaluate you in whatever terms they saw fit, and upon so doing, their word about you became the truth about you, then in a very practical sense you might say that your soul was no longer in your own keeping. The good news is that the non-feminist sector now claims the controlling word on what feminism objectively is or isn't. That is the memo. Pass it along. Spread the good news. The feminists may natter at will about us and about our world. They may pontificate and palaver. They may undertake to bind us in elaborate skeins of academic theory and recursive double-talk. But this is all in vain, because we now have the power to rip their cobwebs asunder. That's right, we have that power, whether we know it or not. It is as simple as making up our minds to do so, and then doing so. And what is holding us back? Cobwebs. The feminists insist that feminism is objectively a good thing, and yet invariably something is wrong because they can never tell you the whole truth about feminism. They themselves, or most of them at any rate, demonstrably have no clear idea what feminism is at all. And yet they have the crust to say or to imply or to assume that feminism is a good thing. But how can they possibly know this? They have no better warrant for such knowledge than their fixed determination to believe at all cost and in the face of all contrary argument. There is one group of feminists, the majority, who cannot cogently explain what feminism is. There is another group who can indeed do so, yet cannot cogently rationalize the adverse consequences which their explanation might generate. And there is a final group which rationalizes those adverse consequences only by militantly shifting the blame onto men and absolving women of virtually all moral accountability. This third group is female supremacist by a de facto process of elimination, because no other endpoint logically coheres with their moral standpoint. All of feminism is situated on a slippery slope leading toward female supremacism as a moral endpoint. I'll say that one more time. All of feminism is situated on a slippery slope leading toward female supremacism as a moral endpoint. Note the progression from those who possess no cogent understanding of what feminism is to those who do possess such understanding, but maneuver to avoid the implications, to those who militantly embrace the implications and damn the torpedoes. These three layers of feminist cognition operate as an integrated cultural organism, with a distribution of functions across many sectors. We call this cultural organism the femplex. That the majority of self-proclaimed feminists would not appreciate hearing such things will not deter the present speaker's assessment, and it is upon precisely the foundation here suggested that the non-feminist sector may claim to speak the controlling word about feminism. Feminism as a whole has no unified conscious knowledge of itself as a whole, meaning that feminist self-knowledge is not uniformly transmitted from one end of the femplex to the other. The different parts operate in oblivion to each other, or semi-oblivion to each other, or varying degrees of moral disassociation from each other. And so, feminism in the sum total of its ideations, actions, and consequences exists as a public object, an object for the world. This means that although the feminists are free to interpret themselves and explain themselves and rationalize themselves and change their disguise as often as they wish, the non-feminist sector may likewise claim as much expertise about feminism as any feminist might claim. Feminism is by default an object for the world, because it is not and cannot be consistently, rationally, or honestly an object for itself. We of the non-feminist sector are free to be scientists who analyze feminism and experiment with it, free to be artists who sketch and paint pictures of it, free to be preachers who preach about it, free to be guitar players who write songs about it, free to be poets who write satirical verses about it, free to be gonzo intellectuals who philosophize about it, free to be comedians who make jokes about it, and so on. And above all else, we are free, upon the strength of independent criteria, to draw conclusions as we see fit regarding the inherent goodness or badness of it. Feminism is an object for the world, but feminism is not the world. It is rather a portion of the world, but the remaining portion is larger and entitled to exist, and entitled to a voice upon all matters which vitally pertain to it. Some people believe that feminism is a good thing. Others believe the contrary, and it is even conceivable that some people would regard feminism as a merely indifferent thing, as I myself once did. Truly, there are many shades of belief in this realm of speculation. At all events, the time has come to kick over the traces, to open the field to a universal free-for-all. The power of the shibboleth can and must be broken. So let the word feminism be opened to discussion, and let the thing which the word signifies be correspondingly opened to whatever dissection the discussion might entail. It is clear to the present speaker that feminism, on its collective mind level, does not genuinely know itself, that it cannot or will not acknowledge the moral variety of its own composition, from whence it follows that feminism cannot accurately assess its own consequentiality in terms of the social ecology. Thus, a critical dimension of understanding has been omitted, and given the nature of the case, the task falls upon others to make good this omission. And by others, I mean people other than feminists. I mean people whose non-inclusion in the feminist enterprise is keenly delineated. For the truth about feminism can never be known to those who occupy the standpoint of feminist triumphalism. Such a standpoint can, by its nature, never admit the possibility that feminism is other than a good thing. and being incapable of such admission, it follows that the standpoint can never process counterindicative data in a manner that is intellectually honest. So the feminist standpoint is equipped from the outset with an intellectually dishonest mental filter that colors its entire outlook on the world. We call this mental filter feminist subjectivism, and it is a direct consequence of feminist triumphalism. But in the end, this is very simple. If the bottle contains a few harmless things and also a few things that might kill you, then answer fast. Is the stuff in the bottle good or not good? You should demand up front an honest list of all the ingredients. Shouldn't you? And so it is in the battle for feminism's soul. It is the battle of the bottle, the battle to know what is in the bottle and to name what is in the bottle. What really is the value of X? So, is feminism a good thing? One must inquire to know what is really in the bottle, for that is the only way one can ever hope to learn. But where to begin? Begin by floating this query into the world in whatever manner your ingenuity might suggest, as one of a number of distributed questions that will eventually be so circulated. Yes, questions are worth as much as answers, for asking the right question is like shaking the answer tree and watching the fruit fall. So propose a question for general consideration. Circulate that question, and by so doing activate the collective mind along the chosen path of inquiry, lighting the way into a targeted zone of discourse. The question becomes a distributed project, with a battery of mental firepower brought to bear upon the task from all directions. Distributed questions ought to be carefully formulated so as to address structural weak points, and the question whether feminism is a good thing answers very much to this purpose. Is feminism a good thing? The opposing sector will not be happy to hear this. It is blasphemy to even intone such a proposal at all, and it will make them madder than a one-legged kangaroo on a skateboard, particularly if the question will not go away. Particularly if the question pops up everywhere, again and again, more and more as time goes by. And always in a voice that is unfailingly nonchalant and blander than butterscotch pudding. Eventually the question will settle into the landscape, take root and grow. Then the culture will not be rid of it, particularly when a popular discourse springs to life around it, and people grow addicted to the liberative enjoyment such discourse introduces into their lives. Such is the Achilles heel of feminism. To merely pose the question whether feminism is or is not a good thing insinuates that it is perfectly acceptable to harbor an unorthodox opinion upon that point, which in turn undermines and problematizes orthodoxy itself. It further insinuates that the realm of non-orthodox sentiment makes a proper field for extended discussion. And who knows, maybe even academic discussion. One thing, as you see, leads to another, and big things have small beginnings. At any rate, it is certain that you've got to begin somewhere. Not necessarily a single somewhere. It could be a lot of different somewheres in a lot of different places by a lot of different people. But still, the only you that you have is you. And you can't spread yourself too thin, so you need to begin at somewhere. And here I have suggested one such somewhere. What matters here is the principle that lies behind this, and the potential utility that lies behind the principle. And I hope that somebody, somewhere, has found inspiration or food for thought in all of this. I leave you with this parting thought. If the opposing sector is entitled to its fixed idea, that feminism is a good thing, then we of the non-feminist sector are equally but oppositely entitled to our own fixed idea that feminism is a bad thing, or at least an indifferent thing. And there we sit, like the gingham dog and the calico cat, staring mournfully at one another across the fault line in our fixities. But the ball is in their court. The burden is upon them, and they have a choice. Not a choice that our side extends as an ultimatum, but rather a choice embedded in the nature of things. A choice that is bigger than all of us. And that choice is to coexist or to not exist. The burden, as I say, is upon them. And if they decline the first option, that is where the hurly-burly begins. Fiedelbogen. Out.